right, so let's go ahead and get started. This is episode 31 of our Toolbox Tuesday series. We're going to be focused on our data imports and migration tool today. And just for a quick introduction, today you're going to have myself as well as Preston, one of our product managers, on the call. So I'll be walking through most of the brief PowerPoint that we have here just to go over the gaps and our solution, as well as the live demo. And Preston will be helping along the way to answer questions and keep me on track on our agenda. So that's who you've got here today. Quickly jumping into the agenda for the next minute or two, then we'll actually jump straight into the live demo. So what are we going to go through today? First, we're going to go through some of the gaps, probably common things you've seen with configuration packages, edit in Excel, copy and paste, however your preferred method is to get that data into Business Central. We're going to talk about kind of some of those pain points or the gaps. Then we're going to jump into the solutions that we've created in Business Central. Again, everything's directly embedded, as you've probably seen with some of our other apps. And that solution today is going to be our data imports and migration tool, being able to load data much quicker and much more efficiently. We'll then jump actually into the live demo and do a few different exercises of how we can import data and migrate data within Business Central, coming from external data sources, as well as company to company within the same environment within Business Central. And then finally, we'll talk about some of the next steps that you can take in order to be successful with this app, including our 30-day free trial, resources that you can go to, like our YouTube channel and product page, and then, of course, Q&A. Like I mentioned, for people now joining that weren't in here originally when I talked about this, please just drop your questions in the chat. Preston and I will attempt to answer those as we go throughout the presentation. And we're here for you today, so please ask those questions and interrupt as we go, and we'll answer those while we're on a specific topic. So what are some of the gaps? This is definitely one of my favorite tools when it comes to building efficiencies within Business Central. One of the first gaps that we like to call out is that large data loads within Business Central are just very slow, right? Whether you're doing edit in Excel or configuration packages, after you get past that 10 or 20,000 row threshold, Business Central is really going to start to slow down. And with those config packages, you really can't go over 20,000 rows is my recommendation. I've done it before, but wouldn't recommend it. So one use case I always like to bring up is we had a client that had about 300,000 rows of GL data at their go live, right? We ended up having to split this between about 15 different configuration packages before having our data imports and migration tool. And that took almost 2 full days to import the data and then validate the data and do all of those steps, right? And we had to break it up. That isn't the case with our data imports and migration tool, and we'll get into that here in a second. The next piece is standardized templates, right? You open up a configuration package, for example, and the first thing it does is give you about 150 to 200 different fields that you can choose from. Well, typically you need like 8 or 10 of those, right? And we're going to apply this to OpenAR, OpenAP, and our GL history that we're going to talk about here in a second. So again, another big gap is a lot of times people don't know what fields to select as they're getting started with Business Central. We'll help you solve that. Budgeting enough time, right? I always find nobody budgets enough time to actually do these data migration efforts. And that's largely because some of the things that we've seen above, right? How long is it actually going to take to load? How far are we going to have to split those? And what does our template look like? And then moving data from one company to another, right? If I have company A and company B within the same production or sandbox environment, I have to export it out of one config package and import it into another, right? We're going to show you a table migration tool that we have that allows you within the same environment to move data from one company to another. So I know I probably answered a lot of these already, but what does our solution look like, right? Ours is going to simplify that edit in Excel and config pack process for AP, AR, and GL loads by using standardized templates. We're going to load data in about 10% of the time it takes with the alternative methods like edit in Excel or configuration packages. We're going to provide those standardized templates, and you don't only have to use these for migration, right? We have some people that use these for larger data loads on an ongoing basis. And then finally, the bidirectional data migration between any two companies within the same environment with our table migration function. So with that, I'm going to pivot over quickly to Business Central. Preston, keep me honest if I missed anything there, but I think we're looking good so far. And the first thing that I want to show today is a comparison between a configuration package, which I'll do over here on the right, and our data imports and migration tool over here on the left. But before I jump into that, I want to show one thing. We call it the nav to BC chart of accounts translation. And although it says nav to BC, it's not specific to nav, right? This can be any legacy system that you have that you're bringing data over to Business Central. So what is this going to do? Essentially, in column 1, it's going to take your old account number. So think of this as the old account and translate it to this new account number plus any dimensions that you want tagged there, right? So a lot of times people are exporting their data out of their old system. They're doing a bunch of Excel work to manipulate that data and get it into the new chart of account structure, which, as we know, the more touch points, the more error prone it can be. Whereas here, I can just say, hey, if you find account 2100, map that to account 21200 in Business Central, and also add all of these dimensions, right? If you're coming from maybe Dynamics GP, where you have those account strings, where you might have 5 or 6 different segments, you can take that old nav account, and this can be the main account plus each segment, right? So we'll show that in practice here in a second as well. But I like to call that out as we're sifting through all of our data. This can be a huge value add as well. So with that, let's go back. And one of the things I talked about is how much quicker our data imports and migration tool is than your standard configuration package, right? So I want to demo that kind of in a live environment and also at the same time show you how that's possible. So if I click on home here, I'm just in my general journal. The first thing you see is a lot of different options here, right? So the first 2 are your general journal. MD stands for multidimensional, which is going to allow you to use dimensions 1 through 8, as we saw in that mapping. Simple is just going to be the global 2. So depending on what you need here, if you want to import more than 2 dimensions, which again can be difficult with configuration packages with all of the dimension set entries that you have to make sure are kind of in check, versus do you just want the global 2? So since we had 8 there, or maybe 6 that were populated, I'm going to go with my multidimensional. So here it's just saying, what batch do you want to put that in? So we're going to put it in DIM, data imports and migration. Click OK. And let me grab a file over here. I can just drag and drop it. And again, we talked about standardized templates, so I'll show that in a second. And I'm getting an error, right? So let's look at the template. If I look at this template, I've got 40100, which is listed probably 1,000 times because I did it every other line or something like that. I don't really want to go update every single one of these lines, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and go to the nav to BC conversion. And I'm just going to put in account, what was it, 40100, and I'm going to map it to 40110, right? And now instead of editing maybe 1,000 plus rows, again, in our standardized template, right, we only have a couple different fields that are needed here. Through row 2000, we'll do the same amount of data in a config pack. I can now take this, let's save that file over here. Just give me 1 second. And now if I come back into my journal and import the multidimensional, DIM, click OK, drag and drop, right? A few simple steps. In about under 10 seconds, this is going to load directly into our data imports and migration template here, which we'll see. Just give it about 3 more seconds, and it should come in there with our 2,000 lines, and boom, right? Maybe 10, maybe 11 seconds there, and it's going to have all 2,000 lines, every document number called out here, sort that high to low, all of our different GL accounts, and for, let's see, that should be account 21200. Let's map that up here. Anything that was 21200 that we now have filtered here should have all those dimensions also brought in, right? So again, not only did we not have to set up the configuration package, but it's also loading all of that data in just a few seconds and mapping all of those dimension values as well. Now, I actually created the same file, but did a configuration package, and we'll let this run in the background just while we talk through it, but just to kind of show how long the same amount of data would take in a configuration package. So what I like to do here in all of my demos that we talk about speed is start a little timer while we talk. And let's actually do the stopwatch. We'll start that. So I've already done the package. Let's import it. And now it's going to start to load, right? And not only does it have to load, but we're also going to have to apply this. So Preston, while I do that, is there any questions in the chat that we can talk through as we're doing this speed test for the data import and migration?
Nope. There are no questions as of now.
Okay. Sounds good. The other thing to call out as well is anything that needed to be mapped, and I'm going to go ahead and apply this now. Anything that needed to be mapped, we also had to do, and I did this before the session, in the config pack for the test, right? Because the configuration package isn't looking at that old to new translation. It's not looking at my dimensions or anything like that, right? So I would have had to do, outside of just the time it's going to take here to load, I also probably spent 5 to 10 minutes just remapping all of that data. And again, that's only with 2,000 records. So as you can imagine, with that 300,000 row example that I used, not only would we have to break that into about 15 different config packs, I would also have to map that data and make sure that it's validated 15 different times. So just multiple different use cases as to why we prefer our data imports and migration tool over some of the alternatives. And while this continues to load, it should almost be done. I'm just going to look through my notes real quick, Preston, to make sure that we didn't miss anything else. But I think that was pretty much everything we wanted to show here, correct? Awesome.
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll call it a minute 30, 2,000 records inserted. That's great. And now if I come back to my batch, that same data should be in the configuration package over here. So we do have the same data, but again, a little bit more manual to do this piece. And again, we're only using 2,000 rows as our example to validate here. So the next two things I want to show are our OpenAP and OpenAR. So it's going to work very similarly. And with this, we can use this for data migration at the beginning of a go live process, or we can use this on an ongoing basis if you have some larger files. So we have both the option to do it with a CSV or an Excel. I did CSV for today, and we're doing AP. So same process here. Come in, open AP, click OK. Then let me grab my AP file, drag and drop. And I only did a couple records here, but again, standardized templates. You can see here, if I come into my AP template, I just have the vendor name, the date, if it's an invoice credit memo, amounts, document numbers, and the total amount. Again, you do have to respect the negatives and positives for invoices versus credit memos, but I've got my dates, I've got my document type, my document number, my vendor number, and my various amounts, right? So again, a couple seconds there, take the prepackaged file, load it in. Again, I think you guys are starting to get the idea. OpenAR is going to look very similar. Click home, click import AR with the CSV, type it in, OpenAR. It's kind of like that config pack name in a sense. And then
Ben, we do have a question in the chat.
Yeah, go for it. I'm going to load this real quick.
Yep. Can you use this to write line level detail for AP or AR transactions?
So this is just going to be kind of like the summary level data. So you're going to have one side going to your vendor or your customer, AR, AP, and then the opposite side, typically at go live, is going to be the same AR, AP account, just to wash it out to get those open transactions in there. Or you could put an expense account or a revenue account, but it would be kind of like similar to your sales and purchase journals. It's not going to be at the granularity of a purchase document or a sales document where you have the item lines and the GL lines and anything else like that, right? So this is kind of for those that open AP balance, open AR balance, not necessarily the line level detail. So hopefully that answers your question there.
Well, yep, we actually have a few more as well. So next one is, what fields in the general journal lines are included in the import?
Yeah, so let me grab that template that we have. Let's see. So actually, let me grab the one that has the headers, Preston, unless you have it handy.
Let me see, actually.
I've got it here in the Teams file, so let's grab
as well.
So I just have this for reference, but you're going to have your GL account number, and I can send you these templates after the call. Anybody who wants these templates, just let me know. So you're going to have your GL account number, you're going to have your date, you're going to have your document number, your description, your amount, and then all 8 dimensions there. And you don't have to populate all 8, but we do give you the option to do 8 if you need. And then the reason I highlight this is, as a template and a CSV, you'd fill in all this information within the template and then just delete the headers and then import it as a CSV, and you're good to go. So hopefully that answers that question.
Well, yep. And then there was another question in Q&A, kind of similar, but what is the structure of the file needed? Is it the same columns we have in the config pack? So just like Ben was saying, he can send you this template afterwards and it'll be able to get imported.
Yeah. And one of the main goals is that it doesn't have every field that a config pack has on purpose, right? Just to simplify the import into what we see, I would say 95% of the time, people needing as they're doing these imports for either GL, AP, or AR, right? It can be a lot more simplistic than what a config pack has to offer. And if maybe there's a field in there that you absolutely need and you want to use data imports and migration, let us know. We could look at adding that into the file for you. But yes, the whole purpose is to take the complexity of sifting through what is this in the general journal line. So the general journal line has 234 fields available, right? And we did about 10, 15 of them here. That's really all you need, right? To get started.
And then last question is, for the AP side, did you include external document number and due date on the import?
So the due date would get automatically triggered from the payment terms. We could look at adding that in. External document number, no, we just have the document number and the description. So again, if there's some additional fields that you needed added in, let us know. We can take a look at that. So Preston, if you want to take these questions as I keep going through, we can make sure that we follow up with everybody. Structure of the file. Yeah, we answered that one. Just making sure that everything's answered for AP. Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so talked about AP, talked about AR. Similar there again, main use cases at Go Live, but we do have people using that on a regular basis as well. Preston, if there's anything else there, I'm going to jump into our table migration. You see anything else there that we need to address, or are we good to go?
Not specifically from here. I think, yeah, it's just if those miscellaneous fields are needed to be added, obviously just let us know and we can talk about those.
Perfect. So with that, similar to doing kind of here how we did, our data import and migration on the left and config pack on the right, I'm actually going to switch over to what I call this blank new company, and we'll show you the table migration tool that we've got here. So bounce out of here. And on the left-hand side, we've got table migration. Again, if you come up to the search, you can just type in that table migration. Let me refresh it here. And again, the idea here is to move data between two different companies within the same environment. So I'm going to move a few different things. Let's just go back from the beginning so we can show you how to get there. Again, I'm just in a Cronus company in global apps. Over here, I'm in global apps, same environment with a different company. And let's go to table migration. And over here on the left-hand side, you can see a bunch of different functional areas, right? So we have setups, we have master data, we have reports. You can click down into these. Then within the setup, you have, general items, customers, vendors, all that good stuff. If you click this double arrow, it's going to expand everything, right? So as we're coming down the left-hand side here, you've got your general setups, your item setups, your customer setups. Let's keep going. Masters, item master, customer master, vendor master, all that good stuff. And then some of your different financial reports. So this is those tables that you want to migrate. And if you want to migrate it, you can check the box here. So I'm going to migrate customers. I'm going to migrate vendors. And up here, I'm also going to do the customer posting groups and the vendor posting groups, right? Because I'm going to need these customer posting groups and these vendor posting groups in order to make sure that some of the fields on the customer and vendor come through as well. So that's the first thing. Click migrate. It'll include that table in the migration. Existing record options. So let's say you're migrating customers from, let's click here. We're going to migrate it from this company to the blank company. Again, I just created a brand new, literally blank company in Business Central, which is what we're going to go to for customers. And this is saying, do you want to skip those records or override them? So skip, if it finds it, it's just going to skip over it. Override it, if it finds it, it's going to take whatever data we had in the source system and override it in the destination system. The next piece is the filter on field. So maybe you don't want to bring over every customer, right? We had a client recently that spun up a new company, and this is a great use case, right? So they were operating in the United States. they opened up a Canadian office and they said, hey, we want to move over all the setup data, all the chart of accounts, things like that. And some of our customers and vendors that also operate there, but not all, right? So in this case, I will migrate all the vendors in this case, but for customers, let's only move over the ones that are marked international in a customer posting group, right? So not only do you have the ability to move customers, but you also have the ability to filter on basically all the fields that exist. If we look at this, all the fields that exist on the customer card, you can filter on those before they're migrated over. And you can actually do two filters. So you could do customer posting group equals international, and maybe you want a second filter based on the country or the state or something like that, right? So you can use those. It'll take the combination of both of these and only move over what's in that filter.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, we are ready to move some data. Let's actually come up here and take the customer posting group. And I've got two different options. I can migrate a single table. So let's use this for the first two. You saw how quickly that worked. So migrate single table is just going to migrate the table that you've selected. Migrate tables will move everything over. So if every field you have marked as migrate here, it'll move them all over at the same time. And then if you're coming in here for the first time, make sure you click load defaults, and that will load in all these different functional areas that you see here. So if I come into my blank company and I go to the customer posting group, I now have my domestic and international, like we just saw. If I go to my vendor posting group, I just have domestic, which will match what's in this company now. And at this point, I'm now ready to, again, populate my customer list, which we can see is blank. Vendor list should also be blank. Let's come back out here. And Preston, before I do that, any questions or anything else I missed before we click the button?
Nope, we are good to go. I've been answering in the chat, so you can continue moving forward.
Perfect. So now to do both of these at the same time, the customer, let's just make sure it's mapped to the right companies, blank company, that's perfect. I'm going to go ahead and migrate tables. Okay, so also just popping up a message of how quickly it ran there for us, just to show the speed at which we're doing things, right? So blank new company, right? If I look at my customers here, just to show you that we're not cheating, come over to customers over here. I've got all these customers, right? But only 3 of them were labeled international. And if we look here, we can see that, right? So proven out that the data migration worked. It only grabbed our international customers according to the customer posting group. And it quickly populated all those customers with all of their data directly in the blank new company. Now, same with vendors. I didn't do any filters here. So if I look vendors, it should match, right? So we can see that similar to our OpenAP, OpenAR, General Ledger, where we're bringing it in from an Excel file, this doesn't require any files, right? You're just simply telling it, take my data from company A and move it into company B. And if you find things, do you want to skip over them or do you want to override them, right? So a lot of different use cases here, but like I shared, you're setting up a new company, maybe take all of the chart of accounts, the dimensions, but no transactions, maybe some of the customers, some of the vendors, and no fixed assets, let's say, right? You can do that without ever having to open up a configuration package, just with the click of a couple buttons here based on the setups that we looked at, right? Same goes for maybe moving data down from a production company to a test company to run tests and troubleshoot things and things like that, right? So whatever your use case is, moving data from one company to another, whether it's setting up a new entity or a new instance. I know in the past, a lot of times, if people knew they were going to be acquiring companies or opening up new locations, we would create like a template company, right? But the problem with the template company is now if I update something in one of the other companies, I have to go make sure I remember to update it in the template company and keep the template company current. Otherwise, when we create a new, entity and we spin up a copy of the template, we're going to have, we might be missing things from the past couple months. Whereas if we use this tool, you can say, give me my production, ERP Connect company and copy down all the setups to some new company and it'll grab it at this point in time, right? And that's for various setups, not just the master data, right? So you can also do that with, if we look back here, not only the masters, but the different setups, right? So your countries, your regions, your number series, your sales and receivables setup, payables setup, fixed assets setup, locations, units of measure, bin, right? Like all these different things. if you need to, you can select to migrate them and just pop them over to the new company. So I know we're almost at time. We got a few minutes left, but want to make sure that I answer any other questions that there are. I'm not seeing any, but I think that pretty much goes through all the different topics that we wanted to show today. I'm just going to look at my notes one more time to make sure that we didn't miss anything else.
Yeah, and while you're looking through that, just one more call out is the table migration tool is not going to go from a sandbox environment to production, right? So like Ben was saying, it's going to go company to company. So just a call out there, it's not going to like essentially push data from a sandbox up to production. It's going to be within that same kind of environment.
Yep, good call out. Good call out. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint while we have a few minutes here. Now, we showed you everything that you can do, right? What are the next steps in order for you to take this and be successful if you're a partner in your demo instance or if you're a user in your actual sandbox to potentially use this in your production instance, right? So download our free trial. Preston's going to drop some links in the chat here, both to our activation video, app source, some of that good stuff, right? But download that 30-day free trial. Partners get it in your demo, users get it in your sandbox. Watch our activation video, right? It's going to be about 90 seconds long. It's going to show you how to go to the setup page, generate your demo key, and then request an activation key if you want to use it longer than those 30 days. And then various resources, right? So our product page, that's going to be kind of the end all be all when it comes to the selections that you have for our apps. Right now, we have 34 different products on AppSource. All of those you can find on our product page or the link to AppSource. Again, if you want to download them from AppSource. Both of these will include summaries, screenshots, as well as our user and setup guides to be successful when downloading the tools and actually implementing them. Again, this video will also be published as it's being recorded. So you'll also have this video to look back on, which is going to be on our YouTube channel. Next bullet point there. Demos, walkthroughs, Toolbox Tuesdays, all of that can be found out on our website, which is also linked to our YouTube channel. And then finally, our product guide. If you were at Summit with us last month, you might have gotten a hard copy of one of these. If you want a hard copy, let me know. I got a few left that I can definitely mail out. But this is going to include a fit gap analysis of all of our different products, right? So like we talked about today, what are the different gaps that exist at Business Central? How do we solve those, or what is our fit? And then how long does it take to actually configure, train, and go live on these, right? I think that's one of the big questions a lot of times people have that not a lot of people are willing to share. We'll put that right in front of you. This is exactly how long it takes to configure, stand up, train, and go live. With data imports and migration, again, most of the work is going to be getting your data into those Excel files. And once you have that, it takes barely any time at all to actually implement this tool, which is great. Outside of that, any other questions? I've got about 5 more minutes. I can stick around, so I'm happy to stay a little bit over if anybody wants to ask any questions. But other than that, just really appreciate everybody tuning in again today to another great episode of Toolbox Tuesday. And next week, as a reminder, we have our big health check webinar. It's not a Toolbox Tuesday particularly. It does happen to fall on a Tuesday, but this is going to be a 90-minute session, and we're going to configure and implement our health check, which is also a free app, for free next Tuesday. So if you haven't signed up for that already, I'll drop the link here as well, but that's going to be a great session next week. So I'll do that right now while I wait. But any other questions?
Yeah, there was one about on-prem, which I answered, and then Bradley just said, what's involved with you adding additional tables to the table migration tool?
Yeah, so we would just take it on a request by request basis. So just let me know what you would need. We would just have to add that to the code and then push it back to AppSource. So depending on what you need, I can give you an estimate on how long that would take. But if it's just a couple fields, I can't imagine it would take too long. Yeah, and to answer the question about cloud versus on-prem, currently only supporting cloud. So, awesome. Somebody also asked about price. Again, like I said, if you go out to our website, all of the prices can be found here. So if you scroll down to data imports and migration, this tool is only $600 per year. And it's also included in our unlimited extension bundle if you're interested in getting all of our applications for $4,800 a year. So again, standalone $600. As part of our bundle, you can license everything for that $4,800 price as of right now. And then that health check app that I talked about next week, highly encourage everybody to join. That's a free app, and we'll also be implementing it for free next week. So highly encourage everybody to sign up. And I just dropped that sign up link in the chat. So should have all the resources you need there. And everything else I talked about, Preston dropped in the chat. So,
yeah. And then I also saw one last question come in about putting fields to the templates for the data import. Yes, that is possible, Sam. You just got to let us know so that we're aware of which specific fields you would like to be added. And then we can talk about how to proceed from there.
Yep. Perfect. Well, again, really appreciate everybody joining. We'll see you next week on our health check webinar, and I will stick around for a few more minutes in case anybody has any questions, but just thanks again, and we'll see you next week.